Hi everyone, my name is Catherine. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're coming back, welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. Today, I thought we would do something a little bit more fun, a little bit lighter. Last week's video was pretty heavy, so today I am using the supplies that came in my ArtSnacks box to do the ArtSnacks challenge. If you don't know, that is where you use only the supplies that came in your box to create a piece of artwork. So I'm using my Fabriano hot press watercolor paper, the pencil that came in that box, my Daniel Smith watercolor tube in manganese blue, the water brush that came in the box, and the Marabou mixed media art crayon that came, that is in a sunshiny yellow color, which, as you'll see at the end, I ended up not using a lot of these things. But I didn't use anything extra, so I don't know if that's really in the full spirit of the challenge or not. But as it got near the end, I decided I really didn't want to use anything extra. So, it's my artwork, so I can do what I want. To make this, I ended up making a wreath. It's World Watercolor Month this month, and while I'm not doing a watercolor every day, so I'm not fully participating in the challenge, I did look at the prompt for today to get some ideas, and today's prompt was entwined. And I always think of a wreath as being entwined because when you make a wreath, you need to entwine branches and leaves and other such things to make it work and make it hold together and give it the shape that we think of as being a wreath. So I thought a wreath would be a fun thing. And I knew with this beautiful blue, I really wanted to paint flowers. Not really sure why. I just knew I really wanted that for this paint. So I am starting off with sort of phantom drawing a circle with my pencil. I didn't actually put the pencil to paper because I didn't want the pencil marks to show through and mar that nice bright blue. So I knew that my wreath would not be perfectly round. I knew it wouldn't possibly even be close to perfectly round. But just sort of even taking my hand with the pencil in hand, even without touching the tip of the pencil to the paper, just sort of phantom drawing kind of helped me get that circular shape in my head and in my body and in my arm, just to give me an idea of what I was doing. This is not going to be perfect. You'll see at the end, it is lopsided. It is a little bit squished. It looks like a wreath that I might have made myself, since I am not one who makes wreaths. So I have no real experience with that. And so it definitely looks like something that I might have made with things I gathered from the garden. I'm just taking this paint and I am drawing some flowers. I'm trying to vary the angles to give some different perspective. I've got some that are straight on, some that are angled, I hope forwards and I hope backwards. Perspective is something I struggle with a bit just because of the nature of my eyesight, but my goal is forwards and backwards. And as you can see, I needed to add a little bit more paint to my palette. I was starting to get a little too much water in there and not enough actual pigment, so it was getting really light, which was both difficult to see and just not what I wanted for the coloring of this particular piece. So add a little more pigment. And through the course of painting this wreath, I fell in love with the Daniel Smith watercolor. I don't know if it's specifically because this was a tube of watercolor and if that's dramatically different from painting from pans of watercolor, like the dried watercolors, or if I liked it so much specifically because I seem to like this particular brand. I'm not entirely certain, but this was such a pleasure to paint with. I really love the variation in texture and the sort of pretty lines that you can get from this particular paint. And while hot press paper is still not my favorite thing to work with in terms of watercolor paper because you really don't get those nice bleeds, at the same time, the hot pressed paper did allow for, I think, a little bit more of those like brush strokes to come through. So when I did use slightly thicker paint, again, it didn't bleed into wetter areas. And so because it kind of stayed where I put it, I got some really nice sort of swooshes and swirls. I quite like those. Something that's quite nice about subscribing to sort of an art supply box like this is that as a very much beginner, um, it gives me the opportunity to try out art supplies that I would never have bought on my own. I would never have bought a tube of watercolor from any brand, just because I have a pan set. I quite like the pan set that I have. Why would I bother buying a tube of watercolor when I already have all kinds of colors in a set that I already like? But being sent this in the box meant that I got to experiment and discover that I actually really love this brand of watercolor. It also meant that I got to try a water brush, which I again would not have bought on my own. And while I definitely don't love the water brush, I don't love the feeling of the plastic, I don't love the weight. Um, I I'm just not a huge fan of it. At the same time, I wouldn't have ever tried it on my own, and so now I know that. And I also can definitely see the benefit of it. You know, if I were traveling, instead of having to carry brushes and a jar for water and um, all these extra things, you know, you have your water brushes and you just put some water in there. Um, I do prefer having a cup or a jar of water because I think it's easier to clean the brush that way, but I can definitely see why people like water brushes. I don't think it's going to be the tool I reach for all the time, but I can definitely understand why people do. I also would not have bought a pad of hot press paper on my own, and now I have two pads of it from different brands made of different materials. And so, while again, I know that hot press paper is not my favorite paper to work on when it comes to watercolor, it still gives me the opportunity to play around with it, to try it, because it came in the box, and so now I'm going to use it. And I would not have bought it, I would not be using it on my own. Or if I did, it would be much farther down the road, I think. It's just not something I would seek out on my own. I also am not all that interested in pastels or crayons, and so this the art crayon that came in the box is not something I would have bought. And while I don't think I love it, and I'm still not terribly interested in crayons or pastels in general, I'm glad I got a chance to try it, and now I have something that if I need to, you know, if I'm trying to add a different texture or a different color or something of that kind to my artwork, I have it to play with. So I'm really enjoying having the subscription box and just playing with the different supplies that come each month. A lot of times it's things that I wouldn't have bought on my own, and sometimes they are things that I would have bought on my own. This box also came with 3 Sakura Pigma Micron pens, and they are 08, which I already had from a different set, but also a 10 and a 12. The 10 and the 12 are definitely thicker than I would have bought on my own, but just swatching them out, I actually like the thickness of the lines and can definitely see myself using them in different situations. Ended up not using them in this particular art piece. I fell in love with the blue and just really didn't want anything to take away from that beautiful blue color. And so, as I was painting the leaves and the roses and the flowers, I was thinking, if it's a little blobby, that's fine, because I'll just take the fine liners at the end and outline the flowers. And I thought that I would take that crayon and layer it over the leaves. I made the leaves a bit darker, and I thought the crayon layered over the leaves, and it would give sort of a green tint to the leaves, so I'd have this sort of blue and kind of almost green. And when it came time to do it, I found I just really loved the blue, and I love the different shades and textures. I love the blue. I just think it's beautiful, and I really didn't want to mess with that. And it's my artwork. So, you know what? I didn't mess with that because I really loved it just the way it was. So, you know what? I might not have met the challenge. I'm not 100% sure I did meet the ArtSnacks challenge because I didn't technically use all of the supplies in the box. However, I didn't use anything that wasn't in the box. So do with that what you will. Here I'm just mixing up some blue for the leaves. I wanted it to be thicker and darker so that there would be a good distinction between the leaves and the petals, especially with those more pointed petals. And I'm not sure my leaves were entirely successful. Again, I know I need some practice, but I also feel like I just had a harder time with the shape of the bristles on this brush. They don't seem to come to quite the same point that other brushes do, and so it was taking a little bit more effort to get that sort of pointed leaf than I was expecting, and so I'm glad that I had that sort of darker color. And this is again where I thought, well, I'm going to go over it with the crayon, so they'll be a little bit green, so they'll be different from the flowers. And as we've discussed, I ended up not doing that, but that was my thought was, well, even if they're not perfectly distinct from the flowers, I'm going to be going over them so that there'll be a slight difference in color. But I just really didn't want that difference in color when it came down to it. I like that blue on the white page. That would be the dog who just had to bark right this second. You might hear her at different times. I can't always edit her out. So now I'm just going in and filling in different places on the wreath where I think it needs a little bit more volume. As I said, this wreath definitely turned out a little bit lopsided, a little bit squished looking. But again, I think it's kind of fun. It's kind of reminiscent of what I might actually make in real life if I decided to make a wreath, but a lot less frustrating than actually making a wreath. I feel like I would be very annoyed by that process. While I'm finishing up the painting here, I'd just like to say thank you so much for coming to this channel, for watching, for participating and interacting. I really do enjoy making these videos, and I enjoy just giving my perspective on what it's like enjoying different hobbies and like finding adaptations to make things work for me as someone who is legally blind, but still enjoying things and really enjoying things that, people might not expect someone with a visual impairment to actually want to do, let alone enjoy doing. Um, and so if you ever have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, reach out to me on Instagram through the DMs. I would love to hear from you, and if I can accommodate your suggestions or requests in a video, I'm very happy to do so. We will definitely still be talking about some heavier things on this channel, but I really like to intersperse those things with some lighter, sort of more fun content like this. I think it's really important that other people who are blind or visually impaired see someone doing the same things that they might enjoy doing or that they might want to try but are scared to. Because I've felt that way for a long time about art and about different hobbies, that just like, well, why should I bother, because it's not going to turn out right, or I don't want to do it because I can't make it the way someone whose eyes work properly can make it. And that's really not the point of art, but it's really easy to get sucked into that sort of black hole of perfectionism, I guess, or of not feeling good enough when you don't see anyone else doing these things or figuring out how to make adaptations to make it work for them. So I hope this is helpful. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please feel free to leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you are an ArtSnacks subscriber, or subscribe to another art supply box, I would love to hear what you got in your box and what you're doing with them this month. Or, yeah, with those supplies this month. I can talk, really, I promise. And subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Hit the notification bell if you're interested in having YouTube tell you when I upload new videos. And otherwise, I hope you all have a fantastic day. I am going to stop talking and just let this video finish out with the music and finish up the painting. And I will see you back here next week with another video. All right, everyone, have an awesome rest of your day. Bye.